Imagination is a wonderful thing. Some years ago, I was travelling into Swansea, down through the back roads of Calais with a 4-year-old in the back of the car. And he was waving this toilet roll around in the car. I thought, what is he doing? It's annoying. There's an oik in the back seat. And then he said, can you wind the window down? So, yes, we wound the window down. And he was sticking this toilet roll out the window. And Jamie, we said to the little boy, what are you doing? He said, I'm collecting the sunlight. I'm making a torch. Imagination is a wonderful thing. So this young 4-year-old had come up with this marvelous idea that you can collect the sun to actually make a torch. And there it is. Because that was in the 1980s. Now, we have such things. What an imagination that child has. How do we actually capture that in education? And that's been my challenge, teaching creative students for 37 years. How do we help them become more creative? And I've spotted a problem. Pretty much this is it. We have standards in education. We have standards to upkeep in education, actually. So there we are with our standards. And of course, standard means the same. So I've got this ruler here. Yours may not have the British Prime Minister's all written on the back of it, but we've all got ones with maybe inches or centimetres and they're all the same, so we can measure. Now, when we measure, it means we know what we're going to be doing. Because if you measure something, of course, you know exactly what it's going to be, because you can guess against the ruler. The ruler is your guide. As a teacher, I was taught to develop learning outcome statements. Sounds great, doesn't it? What it means is you predict what the student is going to do. You predict what that young person is going to say. And then you measure them against the prediction. So that's the way that education works. Marvellous, isn't it? We can then standardize everything. Everybody knows where they are. Everybody knows what's a good school, a good university. And we can all carry on with our lives. But then we get a problem. It's always the awkward ones, isn't it? And what they do, they make a bigger ruler. They come up with an idea that you never thought of. You're the teacher, you're the educator. You're supposed to be telling them what to do and how to do it and how to do it best. And there's always some annoying little oik who knows better than you do and actually comes up with a better idea than you ever thought of. Hang on a moment, what grade do I give that student? What grade do I offer to actually recognize that actually the ruler has just been reinvented? So I've given this a lot of thought over the years. So understanding creative people has got a lot to do with this. What creative people do is they spot dots. You've probably heard that. Creative people join the dots. Often it's said, creative people join the dots that other people don't see. Well, I'm sure you've all done that in your daily lives. You've gone along, you've faced a problem, or maybe you've looked at a problem in a different way, and you thought, oh, if I just do this and this, maybe not quite the imaginative leap of Jamie's toilet roll, but you come up with something. Are you actually aware of when you get your best ideas? Does anybody from the audience like to tell me? Somebody's asleep. Somebody's between 10 in the evening and 2 in the morning. Anybody else want to? It's very inconvenient, isn't it?
When you're relaxing.
When you're relaxing, thank you. I've had a tweet this morning from a friend Alistair in Dundee saying, tell them I got it this morning when I was running. So these moments actually come to us. We don't really know when they're going to come to us. And yet what we do is we put students in classrooms and expect them to answer questions there and then on the spot. And emotion's got a big thing to do with this. what you find is people have two types of thinking. You have your typical analytical, which us as teachers know quite well. You break it down into its constituent parts and then you deliver it. And then creative oik comes along and says, ah yeah, you can join it that way as well, and your whole argument's flawed. And that's what people are doing with apps, with jobs, with connectivity. The robots are coming, you know. So when the robots come, all this automated stuff that we're taught, that standardized stuff, by the way, standard ways of doing things, robots can do that. So what's education about then? What are we here for? What are we trying to do? And this is where this comes in. Because people who are creative, what they do is they scoop up everything they can. And they pick it up and they have it in the back of their head, all these ideas. If you watch someone who's creative walking, they're probably walking slowly. They're probably spotting the bird in the tree. They're probably spotting the little mark in the ground. Those of us who are more rushed and pushed, then it's a little different. We miss those things. Creative people love to see what's going on around them. So they pack this with dots. All the little dots. There's a huge red one at my feet right now. Just imagine millions of these things. And that's what creative people do. And they don't care where it comes from, as long as they can scoop it up. And so their thinking gets wider and wider and wider and wider. Then we start to think about what happens in our education system. It's that way around, actually. We get students' ideas, and then we say, oh, that'll never work. Oh, we better not do that one. We haven't got the money for that. And what we do is we systematically take that creativity out of them. By the way, we assess them to the ruler, to the standard. Because we don't give them the chance for that flexibility, that chance to breathe. So what are we going to do about this? Well, we've had a few ideas. And along the way, we come up with these words. Hindsight. Actually, exams are pretty good at that. We look back. We can actually say what happened. And a lot of education is evaluated through exams. Insight. Well, actually, that's something I'm going to talk about now, insight. So insight is when you sort of get just beyond what is the obvious. I'm also going to talk about foresight, seeing into the future. So just to go back to that for a moment, I wonder what's going on in your heads. I can imagine right now somebody's maybe thinking about the lab where this stuff is made and the animals that get killed in it maybe. I'm a vegetarian, so I always think that way. People think about spray, maybe about fly swatters. Am I right? Looking around the room, who's thinking something else, just so I know? Bugs in computers, the old famous one in America when the bug stuck in the computer and actually flew in through the window and messed it up. Yeah, okay, those are the sorts of things we think about. Creative people always think that extra step. Now, I think your laughter probably says it all. It's not a wrong answer, isn't it? Just like Jamie's piece of kitchen roll there, toilet roll. It's not wrong. It's just unexpected. And this is the joy of working with creative people. You know, I've been teaching this thing for so long, and it's always the joy, is the surprise. It's the things you don't expect. So how do we actually help that? Well, we've got insight. We can see what's going on. How do we use foresight? How can we take those skills further? Well, we do it through a lot of questioning. And we often do it, I like to think, with metaphor of the pen or the pencil. It's no surprise that artists don't use pens, which are fixed and permanent and locked in their ideas. It's no surprise they use pencils and constantly shade and draw and remap and rub out, and it's less precious. They have many, many ideas. So many ideas is a key to this. Seeing the dots that other people don't see. Bringing out those dots. Actually bringing more dots into that funnel. So when you see another image like this one, all sorts of things are going on in your mind. And I wonder what you are thinking right now. Somebody's pointing at the screen. Well, when you see a black screen, you might assume something's broken, that maybe there should be an image up there. Creative people, design people, for example, will look up there and say, that's dark, that's moody. That's exactly why that torch was invented. They see the black and they see all the connotations that you have with that image and that color that maybe you've never thought about. So, how do we reward this? How do we reward imagination? Well, if we go back to thinking about that insight, that ability to see extra things, we can actually ask students to have lots of ideas. We can ask them to explain why they had those ideas. And we can also ask them to say, and what would you do in the future? How would you develop these things, connect them, and explain them? It's a bit like being an entrepreneur giving a pitch, because when they pitch, that thing does not exist. But it's a darn good argument. So there's many ways that we can reward our students. So when I imagine things, and I imagine the future, I try to think of imagination and creativity and what all those people can do. So finally, I want to break the mold of formal education that use rulers. I want to reward people who can connect many disparate things to come up with new ideas. So I've got the torch, I've got the ruler, I've got the tape measure, I've got the funnel, and hopefully I've made a good argument to you today where people who can disconnect and reconnect things in unusual ways are the creative people we should be rewarding in our education system.